Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of Classroom to Boardroom, where we dive into conversations about careers, skills, and experiences that shape us. I'm your host, Priya, and today we have a very special guest with us, Supriya Kummamuru, who just superannuated from the position of CTO of TCS Middle East and Africa. We'll be exploring their journey from the classroom to boardroom, unpacking key lessons along the way. Supriya, ma'am, it's a pleasure to have you here. Let's start at the beginning. Everyone's career journey is unique, and our listeners love hearing about how professionals like yourself got started. So could you tell us a bit about your educational background and your career and how your education paved the way for your career, or any interesting thing that you would like to share about yourself? So yeah, ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Priya. It's a pleasure being part of this conversation. And I think, especially someone who has just moved out to a hectic career and now trying to see, I do have some areas of interest that I'll be pursuing. But I think what I did earlier was different from what I will be doing in the future. It's like giving back to society. I would say at this point of time, when you've had a professional career throughout. So just to start with what was my background and professional career. So I want to say something because see, when you say education and profession are totally like what you learn as in your educational journey is not necessarily, I mean, the knowledge part is not necessarily what you carry into your professional life. There could be different subjects. In fact, the subjects that you learn in school, college, in your graduate, post graduation, I also did my PhD, would not necessarily be what you're actually leveraging it for work. I think it's more about the soft skills, people interaction. Of course, the knowledge is there, which on which you get into your professional career. It helps. So let me tell you my background. I think. Some things were by choice when I say education, and some things it just happened. So, and my education journey continued into my professional journey. So, I would say pre TCS, which was my first job. I mean, I actually started my career in TCS. I had a brief hiatus in between for my personal reasons and then rejoined TCS. So I came with a background in electronics and a master's in management. When I joined a group which was basically into research and consulting in the area of systems engineering and cybernetics, which may sound a little esoteric. So when I joined and I had to actually start learning again what those subjects were. So when I said, but definitely what I learned in school and college were the skills which helped me navigate through this subjects. So it was like starting my academics all over again. When you join work, that's what happens. It's not what you've learned, except in very maybe hardcore engineering when you're using your skills. But when it came to consulting, yes, of course, that's a foundation on which you can build, learn, and probably strengthen. Uh, so my career started right from the campus to a professional organization, and I think at that point, TCS was more known as Starters for the rest of the family and friends, and it was an exciting journey. And the place where I worked, um, of course, we are lucky. I think our generation where the environments were less stressful. I think we had more learning to do, and we had time to do it. Um, Moving on, I had an hiatus, and when you're talking about education profession, I donned hats right from training, consulting, research, and then end of my career, I was in a more of a leadership role, where I was the CTO for the Middle East and Africa region. But in between, I actually acquired another professional degree, I would say. I got my PhD from JNTU in the area of management cybernetics. And it was actually I was encouraged by my supervisors in TCS to pursue it because that's the area I was working in. So I think they're all interlinked. I mean, I would say synergies were there between professional, academics. So my journey was a mixture of both. So that's how I would say. And people who were there as part of the organization in TCS and my teachers and professors, of course, helped me in this. So the skills which were taught, the knowledge which was taught, helped me, I think, navigate the journey. It's not easy, but yes, definitely the soft skills help you overcome some of those challenges. And knowledge is something which helps you deliver the um, I would say the primitives or the solutions for your clients or customers.
It's right. Yeah, yeah, totally agree. Like, yeah, happened even to me when I joined TCS. Like, it was my first job, and then you kind of realize that maybe you are trained on some like very conventional subjects, but when you are on job, it demands like whole new learning and like education starting all over again, like you mentioned. So yeah, that's completely right. And now that we have covered the early part of your journey, let's dive into some interesting questions that I'm sure our listeners will love. Let's start with a fun one. So what was, we always I mean, ask this question to people, but and we always get like so much fun answers for this. So what was your dream career when you were a child, and how is it different from what you do today?
Yeah, this is interesting because my dream career, if you see, it changes over different phases, right? So my first career choice when I was a little child was to be a conductor. See the conductor have a bag and it was full of coins and cash in there. So my first dream was I need to become a conductor because you have so much money with you. So money is what we do. But that is enlightenment. That was one of those first, your childhood dreams. But probably as you mature, my next and which I was very keen on pursuing was in the area of architecture and design. So I was actually I used to paint. I was also, I would say, an amateur cartoonist because I did win a few competitions in that. I would cartoon, I would doodle, I would paint. So I said, let me become an architect. But probably, unfortunately, what at that point when I finished, I got admission in a different city where I think my father was not willing to let me go to a faraway city and wanted me to do whatever I got in the city that we lived in. But I think no regrets. Even I wanted the comforts of my home. So I did not do what I wanted to. But later, when I was doing my management, I was again interested in advertising and marketing. So I did land a job in a very prestigious advertising agency at that point, and I was in Mumbai. But my parents were back home in Hyderabad. So again, there's again that career choice, right? I wanted to join the company, but the trade-off is: do you want to stay there alone and pursue a career, or come back home? And so that happened when TCS also came for the campus interview. So when I got in camp, and very few MNCs then came, which had a big organization in Hyderabad where I belong to, and so I got in. I said, well, let me go to Hyderabad. So I got in TCS. That's how I moved on to a role in TCS to a group which I was not even aware what they were doing because they said there's a group there which does systems engineering and cybernetics, which was all very Greek and Latin then. And then I moved, so I had another interview in Hyderabad. So I said, yeah, back home and a job, which was good. I mean, at that point, from campus straight there. Uh, and then I was interviewed, and they took me in. And then the learning again started. I thought, so people, just have this perception that once you join an organization, you stop learning, but that's when your real learning starts.
Hmm. Hmm.
Hmm.
So that's when I would say my whole learning journey started all over again. Of course, there are other skills, like I said, your basics, your fundamentals, which you've done in school and college there. But then life comes to a full circle, that I should say, because though I majored in marketing in my master's management, um, I never really did marketing roles. But marketing, I think, is part of every role that you perform. Even if you're a researcher, you're actually trying to see how you can um, and so advertising and marketing goes with whether you're a consultant, you're a trainer, you're marketing, everything goes with it. So when I became a CTO, I think that's when I actually uh, it came back. So if you see, it's kind of a marketing role. There are aspects of marketing that you need to do when you're trying to position TCS in the area of technology and innovation. So it's like, okay, something I learned about more than 35 years back comes to use now. So yeah, dream job started with being a conductor, and maybe you it all the way. So advertising, then architect, yeah, but ended up being a trainer, consultant, researcher, and a CTO.
It's amazing to see, how childhood dreams can evolve into in so unexpected ways, and how can they get interlinked with the reality of choices and trade-offs that you have to do along the way between different things, and then how that basically takes you to unexpected career options. And then when we look at it, like, I'm sure when you look at it today, then you see that, okay, it definitely everything did make sense, and you can always connect the dots. Like, speaking of, like you mentioned, how your dream career evolved. So, speaking of evolution, every career requires certain life skills. And so, in your experience, what would you say are the top three life skills that are essential in your profession? And we are asking this question to every guest who's coming here, and who are from different walks of life, from different career paths, just to kind of understand that in general, what are the life skills that each of these careers require.
Um, I would say not in the order of one, two, and three, but these are three very important skills that you need. One is, I would say, empathy. Uh, I think any role, whether you work as a team member or you're a leader, empathy is something which helps. I think you should be able to relate to the people you're working with, which is, I would say, one cornerstone of EI, emotional intelligence, which probably is talked about, which is needed. So I would say empathy is one, which is dovetailed with, I would say, kindness. It's nice to be kind. I mean, people generally think that by empathizing and being kind, you lose your leadership position. People will not listen to you, but it's not true actually, and they will take advantage of you. It's a, I think I would not agree to that, because most people have even told me that you need to be tough. You should be tough. I mean, you have to be right when you're tough. So empathize with people is one thing. Uh, then your ability to play your role and understand. Just don't. So when you're a leader, it's not just at the level of talking at a 30,000 feet, but able to drill down what you're saying to your team right down to the detail. So know your job. I think that's the second thing which is needed, and in any role, and especially if you go to a leadership role, you need to know how to drill down what you're saying to your team member, every team at every level, be it management or technology. Third, I would say, would be collaboration. You should be able to collaborate and do it seamlessly, and that's one strength, because um, any team, any role you play, while I'm talking of a CTO role or researcher role or just a consultant or a trainer, you need to collaborate with different stakeholders. They may not be doing the same thing that you're doing, but they're all key players in whatever role you play. So if I started as a newcomer, I mean, you're just a team member. If you do not have the skill to collaborate with your fellow team members, your supervisor, or your customers, clients, the whole system fails, because in a system, all stakeholders have an equal, I would say, um, they need to contribute equally to make it work. So even as the role that I played as CTO, I have a team, I have clients I work with, and the different groups that you collaborate with. It's not just your immediate team, but a larger organization where you may have to identify your requirements, collaborate with them, and deliver to your customer. And here, when in the CTO role, it was more on innovation and technology. So I'd say the prominence is being given to innovation, because technology, I think, is all pervasive. How do you innovate? But to innovate, you do need to collaborate with different teams, groups, team members. So I would say these are the three things that I feel you need to make anything
Hmm.
work.
Yeah, I really liked your emphasis on the empathy point, because I feel that's often like overlooked. And of course, collaboration, like something that you mentioned, is extremely important. And like in any role, in any industry, anything, I would say. So, and uh, like while we were developing the product for Think Now Classroom, and we were looking at different edtech solutions in the market, and different things that are available to students today, in today's generation. What are the things that schools are doing? So I would say collaboration is something that uh, is being taught at the childhood level, at the school level, nowadays. I mean, I think when I studied, it wasn't given that much of an emphasis, and we kind of learned only when we started working. But yeah, it's good to see that the schools and the education system today is actually giving emphasis to that particular skill. Yeah, so those skills definitely seem very crucial. But I'm curious, sometimes it's the very unexpected or unusual skill that gives us an edge. So like one of the example you just gave in your last answer about that doodling or artistic thing. So would you like to share any unique skill or hobby that surprisingly helped in your job? And how can students basically develop those unique abilities, or I would say develop that mindset where they can leverage what they are good at to make them stand out in their careers?
First, I think I'll break the myth which you're saying success in their careers. I know this is about students' classroom. That's one thing I think we need to remove from a child's mindset. I think he should enjoy what he's doing. So, when you said what is it like during schooling, uh, there was a teacher I had, and at end of the school term, like when you finish your 12th, you had an autograph book. I don't know if you still have those, where you went to each teacher and they wrote it for you. So this was a very nice thing which one of my teachers wrote. It was very pleasant, and I really used to like. Most of us used to like. And she said, "What you learn with pleasure, you never forget." And hope you had many such hours at school. So don't emphasize on success or I don't. I'm trying to recall the word you used to students. How do you motivate? I think what you need to emphasize more is just enjoy what you're doing. So that's when I think people start learning that subject, and the teacher also has to make it equally interesting. But now with so many learning aids, I don't think that's a challenge, because in our days I think it was pen and pencil and book and things like that. But now you have so many digital aids that you even make math and science interesting. I mean, experiments that you do with, but every child may not have the same ability to like or do. There are challenges. um, so maybe I had one answer for how do you change, probably uh, I would answer that later. But how do you encourage them to do is, parents have a role to play. Don't emphasize on, don't equate getting the best mark with success, or show role models who have only done well in academics, but also I think encourage them to look at role models who have done equally well in sport, arts. And doesn't mean you need to get the accolades. I mean, now the whole space, the social media is so crowded. I mean, you have many winners. It's not one or two, especially when there are more than one child or its siblings and all. There's always this comparison mindset which parents have, or you also compare with. I think we should do away with a few things which I always felt, and I always try to consciously do it with my children. One is, don't compare, don't compare success to uh, marks or reaching new heights, or success in terms of being known. Uh, Attribute it to them enjoying doing what they do. I mean, maybe parents, it has become very competitive. I don't know if they would like this advice. Have I done it? To a large extent, I tried. Uh, but yeah, I would say that how do you continue is you can
Right.
probably later, because there are so many careers. When we had, there were very few limited careers, but now I think it's a playing field for careers. You can take up anything you want to and you like.
Yeah, that's actually completely right. Even I feel the same. Though I graduated, maybe in 2018, and it's not been that long, but careers are changing so much. I feel this thing that when I was graduating, we had very few limited options, and now there are like so many new careers cropping up, like social media marketing manager, or influencer, and data scientist, and a lot of things. So definitely, and I liked your emphasis on uh, you know if you are able to enjoy what you are doing, and if you can draw some learning out of it, I think you're successful. You don't need anything else beyond that. Yeah.
But I think it's true, because if you see some success stories, they've not really. We always try to relate, right? It's not. See, it's a mix. Not everyone who wants to become an entrepreneur succeeds. It's only 2% of those entrepreneurs succeed. But you only look at those. So I don't blame when parents or people try to say that you get the best mark, you'll get a job. So it's not discouraging the conventional, but at least be open. Every child is different.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's completely right. And it reminds me how we can draw inspirations from unexpected sources. So, coming to my next question, uh, have you ever learned a lesson from a movie or a book or a TV show that helped in your career, or maybe not career, but in any way in your life? Anything from sci-fi film or adventure novel, anything.
Let me be honest. Yeah, I love watching movies, but I do love reading books. There were some who actually influenced me when I say reading books, more because uh, one of my very close family member introduced me to the author. But movies, I would say I would enjoy watching, but I don't think anything of that inspired me into any role or doing anything. But books, yeah, maybe to some extent. So there were some favorites when in your growing years in college. So there is like I don't know if you have heard of Ayn Rand. She's a philosopher and she writes books. There's a book called Atlas Shrugged, Virtue of Selfishness. Very nice. People may not actually agree with some of her things, but her principles were very strong. So I was quite inspired. When I said architect, I was actually inspired by her book. That's when I wanted to become an architect. So there's a character called Howard Roke in her book called Atlas Shrugged, where, if I'm not wrong, yeah, that's the book he's in. This was like, I read it so many years back. He's a very unconventional architect. That's what influenced me to think that I should become an architect. But unfortunately, no. But then movies, no. Books, yes. My thinking probably, but yeah, Agatha Christie was another favorite of mine. But I don't think the mud and Sherlock Holmes and all those were this mystery. You always try to see, well, how can I solve who's, because her books are interesting. Till the end, you don't know who the
Yeah.
murderer is or whoever the culprit is. So, and that had a few character roles. So, like there's a lady. I mean, detective, and there's a guy, Hercule Poirot. And inspire me in terms of when you do your work, is it like a mystery? Does it influence? But I don't think it really does. Let me be honest. No. The only thing, the book which influenced to think, maybe I thought I'd become, maybe because of the book that I read then. Uh, People, yeah, maybe some people do inspire you.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
be honest, career just took shape as I moved. And, I always have this, I molded myself into whichever role which I like to, took it up, tried to do. When I didn't like it, I just moved away from that. So, um, sometimes you plan for the future, but sometimes things just happen. So just be happy with where it's taking you. As long as you don't like it, you have to move out of it. But
Right.
largely, I think I was lucky to, be in roles I liked, and I had people around, my supervisors, colleagues, and all, to a large extent, have been very, I would say, very collaborative, helpful, helped me in my career, and actually, one of them motivated me to do my PhD, which very few people will be fortunate to do. While
Right. Right.
in uh, in TCS, I did that.
Hmm.
So yeah, so I would. The question is
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
I know I don't have any thriller that I can share that said
No, that was really interesting. That how you thought of becoming the architect because yeah.
little struck by Ayn Rand. And then
Okay.
there's this
Okay.
virtue of selfishness, which is very interesting. I mean, when it actually says, talks about by being selfish, it's a virtue, but people misunderstand the word selfish. I can have a long talk on that, but I think at this point, yeah, so it basically says selfish is not a negative trait,
Hmm. Hmm.
but the way she defined, because it's like you do anything you like, but not at the cost of somebody else's. Uh, I mean, you don't harm anyone else. So that's being like, I'm thinking about myself, but not at causing any negative or loss to anyone around me. So that's how it's defined.
Interesting thought. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I totally understood when you mentioned that when you read Agatha Christie stories, you feel like is your work mysterious enough, or can I be that interesting detective? But yeah, I've heard from a lot of people that when they read non-fiction, they do get certain insights that they can always apply in their career and things. But yeah, those things have to be very consciously remembered and practiced and those.
Books may not, you may not apply, but they're like, books like, maybe I'll talk about it later also on by Clay Christensen, who was actually on our board, if you remember. I think, we had this clay map which was defined by him.
Right.
So his books on innovation and disruptive innovation, definitely those are things which I've leveraged. So there is a
Hmm.
subject matter books, like if you talk of Goldratt, theory of constraints, and there are a lot of books in the area of systems engineering and cybernetics. And one of the fields, I mean, I did my research in the area of cybernetics, and there's a management cybernetician called Stafford Beer. I mean, he has written a lot of books in that area, and definitely his theories and frameworks and principles I have applied. And in TCS, we have actually leveraged it very exhaustively to build a lot of frameworks which have been used and applied for consulting assignments. So that way, yes, books have influenced the work which was done. But to play the role, I would say no. So there are two different things. One is like books did play a role in terms of application from various authors and books that I've read. So I would put Stafford Beer, especially in TCS, while being part of the systems engineering book team, and even moving ahead, because a lot of theories, there are other writers in this area of systems thinking. You may have probably most people have heard of Peter Senge, the fifth principle, uh, where he talks of systems thinking as an attribute. So every by I would say some of these concepts and theories stay. It's just that a new name is given to them. So now it's like design thinking. Earlier it was systems thinking. But if
Systems
you
thinking.
actually if you actually threadbare analyze what they're the same. Maybe previously it was something else. So it's like old wine in new bottles. People want something new, so the same theory, concept, or articulation is put in some other form. So I would say what I learned
Right.
probably like 3 decades back still holds true, because systems engineering is a so the group I worked with, which I started my career in systems engineering. Just to share with you, was started by FC Kohli, who's was the first DIC in TCS. You're very new, so I don't think you heard his name, or if you know him,
I heard his name. Yeah, yeah.
so he started, and he also started TRDDC. He was the one who was instrumental in starting this group, where he said every TCSer should be a systems engineer. So That's how this whole concept started. Uh, and that's when a lot of theory and models and frameworks around it were built. I hope I'm not
Okay.
digressing a lot from
No,
what
no,
you.
no.
No, no, no.
No. It's always interesting to know how different incidents and things shaped a person's career. So yeah, digression here is always allowed. So yeah, okay. So let's have a little fun. This is again a very fun question. Okay, if you like you look at other people in other careers, so if you could switch careers with anyone, it could be a real or a fictional career, for just a day, more like a Nayak movie. So who would it be and why? And it's a great way to basically think about creativity and curiosity in our careers.
Just for a day, is it?
Yeah,
Just
yeah, just for
I would love to be in. See, people think it's easy to be in a politician's role. Since you said Nayak, actually, one day, if I could be in a role which could change a lot of policies. I mean, in one day, you can't really change things a lot. Why not be in Modi's position? Can you? I mean, even that's a process. So that question itself is probably has to be reframed. If you could be in a role and execute certain things, because even to make things change, it takes like years to change a policy. Um, but I'm just thinking this is a very interesting, fun question. There's a lot of roles I would like to be in where I could change things. So one
Mhm.
is, um,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
right.
that's right. If I could
And
live that life for a day, that would be fun. I
yeah,
don't think I've been. I'm sure a politician's life for a day, one day would be very tough. I would only get to. So maybe someone who has a lot of fun. I mean, it appears so everything is like so masked in looking good. So being that someone for a day is a tough question.
maybe an
Maybe
actor.
an actor. Yeah, and could I be
So
maybe an
so that you
answer?
meet
So
a lot
that you
of
meet a lot
people.
of people. No, it's not male female, but yeah, can I be so? And actually, I know it's a very recent incident. I know it was very sad. We lost Ratan Tata, but I was just saying, what if I was him for a day?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he was loved by so many, and I'm actually the way things poured and people talk about it. I don't know whether they actually emulate him, but this I thought came to me. Not a politician, but I think he was someone who was so loved and he did so much. So yeah, I think I would love to be Ratan Tata for a day, just to get that.
Yeah, that
Yeah, that's such a fun choice.
and yeah, when that happened, like all of us were sad, and I could see on social media how people were just pouring for their love and hearts out. Yeah. So now shifting gears a little, I would like to discuss something important. So this is a question for you, since you did your PhD and you are in the research and innovation field. So we know in India a relatively small number of students pursue higher studies in technology and research. So do you think this might be because many do not fully understand what research entails, and or is there a way we can foster a research mindset in students from an early age, either at school or at home, so that people are more open to careers in research?
Okay, good question. But I'll slightly tweak the way I answer. When you say, can you uh, motivate them from right from school? I would say no. So research is something which has to be driven by the interest in a subject that a student takes up, and that may come at any point along that journey. Because in school, you're still, it's a learning mindset, right? You don't talk about research then, you're still laying the foundation for it. But I think at the stage when they're in college or higher studies, uh, they can you can lay the foundation for them to think further about that area. In school, the only way you can do it by is probably instilling in them new ideas or motivate them to find solutions to unanswered questions. I mean, you can probably sow the seed for innovation or research, like maybe high school or something. Can you ask them to start thinking about how do you address the climate change problem? So you start thinking about research from that angle, and that needs uh, to has to be built. So when you say research, are you talking about fundamental research or research a degree that you acquire, which is a PhD? Or I don't want research for research sake, right? It
Yeah,
has to
yeah.
lead
Yeah,
to
yeah.
something. It has to be interesting. So to be honest, when I did, it was like, okay, I'm exploring another subject matter which I've been working with for quite some time, more than 10, 15 years. And then I went into application of one concept which I learned to an HR function. So the same way, if it is just to do a higher degree, I would say uh, that's a different way you have to look at. But if it is to actually help by coming up fundamental research, that I think you can only lay the foundation. Uh, the child would probably I mean, do it based on the interest and the kind of environment which is created for him. So if it in the area of science, so if you take India, or if you take universities, colleges, and all, are we equipped to provide them with that kind of infrastructure where they can do research in the area of maybe chemistry, physics, and all? So there are times like computers now, okay, there are enough. So
Before we wrap things up, let's move into our rapid fire round, a segment where I'll ask you some quick, fun questions, and feel free to give uh, short answers, long answers. It's just named a rapid fire round. Okay, so first question: what's one piece of advice you would give to parents or students about learning and growth?
so again, I would say uh, one piece of advice for learning: do it. Be happy when you learn. Do it with pleasure. And growth, don't associate with success in a career or related to monetary benefits, and then you'll be happy. I mean, you'll actually be learning, and uh, the others are incidental. It'll just happen. So I think it would be mostly to parents. I would advise, encourage your child to learn what he loves to. Um, Let that be spontaneous. Let it not be learning for the sake of, I mean, you need to have that fundamental, because now you don't need even to go to school to do the learning. They're doing the homeschooling. But I think schooling is important because there are a lot of social skills that you acquire, like I was saying,
Yep.
collaboration, empathy. I mean, actually the learning and sharing, if I would say, happens there. But one piece of advice would be, don't push. uh, Ask them to do what they like with pleasure and be happy. And you said actually uh, learn and growth. I would say growth, I wouldn't attribute growth to um, career success or money. Attribute growth to more learning and more happiness.
Awesome. Yeah, great advice. I think this second question is kind of the same question as first, but a little with a little twist. Now, if you go back in time and give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Should I paid more attention in class? Okay. Yeah, that would be one. Or maybe I did. Yeah, maybe this is a fun question. What would it be if I had to go back and advise myself? I would say, don't be influenced by others. Maybe there was some influence from others because I had to prove myself in some areas. So, one bit I would say is, I mean, at that point, if someone had said that just do what you want, don't be influenced by others, maybe it would have been a different path
Hmm.
Mhm.
altogether. It's like we had to,
Hmm.
Mhm.
there's that peer pressure. It was there actually, because in school you have a bunch of group of friends. We're still together, I mean, so many years. But yeah, we always had that in the first stop, like so we had a group like 7 or 8 of us. We always had these compete for those 1 to 5 or 1 to 7. Fortunately, I was never in the first three, but yeah, but always it was peer pressure to get into that. But I was okay after that, even with 6, 7, fine, in a classroom of 50 doesn't really, it's okay. And my father, I should say, he was my role model because uh, neither my father or mother were really after us to study. I mean, we went to school, and the only time I think he would look at the report, we had those days report cards to sign. He would just sign and sometimes say, why is it that these marks here are, I mean, little less? But I don't think we were actually. So the peer pressure was not from the family and not from our parents. It was more from the school environment and college. Maybe if I were to go back and someone said, just do what you like, don't get influenced by them, would be a good advice.
Awesome. Yeah, I think many people would like to give the same advice to their younger self. Even in my time, there was like a lot of peer pressure, competition, and influences from others. So yeah, very suitable advice for a lot of people. Love that answer. And lastly, did you face any challenges in your school or college life? And how did you tackle them? So any fun anecdotes?
School and college. Okay. Um, Honestly, there was not much of a challenge. I think it was a pretty smooth. There's a very funny thing which happened, which brought out how good friends are with you. Uh, I wouldn't call it a challenge. So when you say challenge, uh, I was fortunate to be, never, I would say, bullied or, I mean, we are not, we don't belong to a, I think our generation was much safer. I think while at school, college and all, yeah, I always had supportive. I would actually bring out the supportive nature of my fellow classmates, whether even when I was in a new city. Um, I actually had to leave from college, like in Bombay, in a city like Mumbai, at around 10, and that was a new city for me. So I came to the station, and there were no cell phones then, so I didn't know you can't call someone to come and pick you up or something. Um, I was trying to get in there, and there was a fear because the whole station was pretty. Bombay, it's not deserted, but I think it was very late. I don't remember the time, but I was fortunate, like I was just waiting there very tentatively to know what to do. Suddenly, one of my classmates walked in, and he was to take a different line. I was on the western and he was on the central line, if you know Mumbai. So I said, I need to go. And he knows I'm not from Bombay. And it was in the early days when I really didn't know my way around. So that challenge was more about going home from college to home, sorry. So I think he just came all the way, the 1 hour journey, dropped and went. So I would say challenge was in that sense, but in terms of like college, yes, I had to also face some tough lecturers. Uh, how do I address it? I would say very simple. I just kept quiet. I was very patient. I mean, you just hear them out, you don't back answer, then they don't say anything. So there are like when you haven't done your homework or so, and then once it was raining and I didn't go on the first day of college, and I was told by the professor when I walked in, "This is Mumbai." Whether I said it was raining, so I didn't come yesterday. And very casually she said, "No, this is Mumbai. Whether it rains or there's a storm, you need to come. You just need to have umbrella with you." That's when it was like, okay, I need to
Yeah.
come every day. No choice.
Yeah, I think this is a very Mumbai and non-Mumbai thing, because like when I also went there from my college, if it rained, I always assumed that it's going to be rainy day or something because I was from UP. But then like later realized, okay, it could waterlog, it could like anything could happen, but you'll have to just start your day with the umbrella.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was very certain. That was my first day. I mean, of her section. She's a very senior person in Cadbury. And I missed the first day. And second day I go, and she asked, "Where were you yesterday?" I said, "It was raining." And I thought it was very normal. And she said, "No, rain is not a good excuse in Mumbai. You have to come." So,
Yeah, that was such a fun round. Thank you so much for being a fantastic guest today. Your journey and insights have been truly inspiring. To our listeners, thank you for joining us on the episode of Classroom to Boardroom. We'll be back with more fascinating guests and conversations